Hi there, my name's Kathy Barker, and this is the last video in a collection of videos that go with my Microsoft Excel The Essentials course. This particular video is looking at how we can effectively print in Microsoft Excel, which sometimes can be a challenge. I'm going to use the sheet called Products in the Excel 1 file that comes with your course notes. Now, with this particular spreadsheet or sheet selected, I'm then going to press Control P to go into Print Preview. You can go File and Print, but the shortcut key is Control P, so I'm going to go that way. First thing I want to acknowledge is that this is a 4-page report, and this is shown down here. I'm looking at page 1 of 4, and if I hit this triangle, I see page 2 of 4, which is about a third of a page longer than one page. And if I look at pages 3 and 4, I can see there's 2 columns too many to fit on one column, one page wide. So I need to try and get this to print not on 4 pages, but maybe on 1 page or 2 pages. Get those 2 columns in and get that 1/3 of a page up. I can also, just looking in the bottom right corner of my screen, I can also zoom in. The second button, there's 2 buttons in the bottom right corner. The second button is to zoom in and see if what you've done is readable. And if you click it again, it zooms out. So you can zoom in and zoom out. And I'll just go back to page 1 just using this triangle here. So we can navigate our pages and see how the information is going to flow over the pages, and we can zoom in and zoom out. Now the first of these 2 buttons in the bottom right corner is allow you to see the margins. So if I turn that on, I can actually see my margins now, and I might think, well, what if I just reduce the left and right margin a little bit, and I might get those 2 columns that were on pages 3 and 4 to come onto pages 1 and 2. So I'm just going to drag this line here, this vertical line, a little bit that way and reduce the left margin. And I might just grab this vertical line and push it to the right to reduce the right margin. A little bit more, and I might make this a little bit more, and there. Now I've actually managed to get all my columns on 1 page, and if I look down here, I'm now looking at a 2-page report rather than a 4-page report. So you can visually adjust your margins until such time as those 2 columns or whatever number of columns you've got fit on 1 page, but sometimes that's not enough. So I'll turn off my show margins. So that's those 2 buttons in the bottom right corner. That's your pages there. Now we could interact with these options here. A quick option to get it to fit on 1 page would just be to make it A3. So instead of paper size A4, I might hit this drop down here and choose A3. Now if you don't have an A3 option, it's probably because the printer you've got selected here doesn't support A3. If you were to hit the drop down and choose Microsoft Print to PDF, just to practice this information, you will then be able to choose A3 just to have a look. So this now fits on A3 and actually could be made a little bit larger because it fits on 1 page, but if I zoom in, yeah, it's quite readable, but we could make it bigger. So I would then go to page setup, this little green hyperlink here, and instead of 100% size, I'd make it maybe 120 and OK that. And so now it's larger, I can zoom in, easy to read, but unfortunately it's now teetered onto the second page by 3 lines. So I'll go back to the first page and maybe not 120, maybe 115. So I'll go back to page setup, and instead of 120 I'll try 115 and OK. And that's still not enough. On page 2 I've still got 1 line, and so I'll go back to page setup and maybe 110 and OK. So now it's fitting on 1 page. It's slightly larger than normal, so it'll be easy to read, and yeah. But what if somebody says, no, you can't put it on A3, it has to be on A4, we don't want it on A3. Okay, so let's go back and change the paper size back to A4. When we do that, the effect of that is we've gone to 4 pages, and that's probably because our 110% is still on. So we've gone for A4. Let's go to page setup. Let's say, instead of 110%, let's say it has to fit to 1 page wide and 2 pages tall, or 1 page wide and 1 page tall. Let's try that. One page, it has to fit 1 page wide, 1 page tall, and fit on A4. So now we've got it all fitting on one piece of A4, but is it readable? And that's when you go for the zoom control in the bottom right corner. That's how readable it's going to be. Some might say that's fine, others will say, nah, way too small. So let's say it's way too small. Let's zoom out again. Let's go back to page setup. Let's say, yeah, see, it took it down to 76%, so it's only 3/4 its actual size, and that's why it's quite small, but that's what's necessary to get it to fit on one page in portrait. So this is portrait straight up and down like this. Let's say we'll go for landscape. We'll make it wider. We'll turn it on its side. We'll make it landscape. We'll fit to 1 page wide by 2 pages tall. Landscape, fit 1 page wide, 2 pages tall. Keep it on A4 and we'll try that, okay. That's really readable, so much so that I don't even need to zoom in because I can clearly see that's readable. I mean, I could zoom in if I wanted to, but that's more than readable. And page 1 and page 2 are pretty fully occupied, so that's good. We're not wasting paper. But it is leaning a little bit to the left-hand side, and I could muck around with the margins, but there's actually a quicker way to do this. So I'm going to go back to page setup. We understand landscape and portrait and scaling and paper size. Let's have a look at margins. I'm going to say, look, let's say that we have to make the left and right margin at least 1 centimetre. So 1 on that side and 1 on that side. And I'm going to leave the top and the bottom at 2.5. But it's these two options here that I think are most important to get this to balance on the page. When you tick horizontally, you'll actually see a demonstration here of what horizontally means. So if I tick that option, you can see it's horizontally centered, and if I tick that option, now it's vertically centered. And if I go OK, you can see it's perfectly balanced on the page now. So you don't have to play with the margins to get it to sit perfectly on the page. Just say you want it horizontally and or vertically centered. Now I think the next thing we need to do is we need to tackle the headers, what appears at the head of every page, and the footers, what appears at the foot of every page. And you can control what appears at the left, center, and right head of every page. So let's go to page setup. We've looked at page, we've looked at margins, look at header and footer. I'm going to choose custom header because I want to create my own header. And I have the option to put some stuff in the left head, center head, and right head of every page. So in the left section I might put my name, or I might put my company name, or you put whatever you want there. And let's say I want my name to be bold, so I'll drag over it and I'll use this A here to apply any formatting. So I might just choose bold and OK. And so my name appears bold on the left head of every page. Now, if I drag over what's in the centered section, I can delete that because I don't want anything in the centered section. And in the right section, I might say printed. And I'll press the space bar. Doesn't look like it did it, but it did it. And now I want to see the date and the time that this report was printed. I can't type the date and time because the moment I do that, it'll be out of date, either within a matter of time or within a matter of days. So I'm going to use these buttons. This button with a 7 on it, this is what inserts the date. So we click that and you can see a piece of code that says date. Then I press the space bar and I click the clock and this inserts the time. So these will actually update. Let's go OK. And you can see them there and let's go OK again. So this is basically showing my name in bold in the top left. And in the top right it says printed, space, and then because I click the date button, it'll say the date it was printed, and then I went space and I asked it to show me the time it was printed. So that means if I've got 2 printouts in my hot hands, I can look at them and I can tell by the top right head of each page the date and the time each report was printed. And out of the 2 reports or more, I can see which one was the most recent because of the date and time. Okay, let's look at some of the others. Let's customize the left, center, and right footer. So we go to page setup, we go to header/footer, and we go custom footer. In the left section, type the word page and press the space bar. click this button to number your pages. Do not type 1. I often get emailed by customers saying, why is every page saying 1? And I'm like, because they typed the number 1, they didn't use the button to insert the page number. So use that button. Then press space, type of, and press space. This button here, this third button, is the total number of pages, and that's why the code says pages and this one says page. So this is going to go page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2. And so, like if it was a 50-page report, you would know how many pages there should be, and you'd know if you were missing a page. Really handy. Also, if it fell all over the floor, you know what order to put it back in because of the page numbering. Okay, let's get rid of what's in the centered section. Don't need that. And in the right section, I want to say file and location and space. Now, if I want to show the file name, I could hit this button with the green symbol. The only problem with that button is it's just the file name. It's not the location. So I will know what the name of the file is, but I won't know where to find it. Whereas the button in front of it is actually the name of the file and where it's stored. So I'm going to go for that one. Then I'll press enter and I'll type sheet and press the space bar, and I'm going to click this button. This will tell me when I find that file in that location and I open it, which sheet, because there's an unlimited number of sheets you can have in a file, which sheet this report came from. So I'm going to click that button. And if I go OK, I can start to see this here. Page 1 of 1, the file and the location, that's where my file's located and what it's called, and that's the name of my sheet. And I go OK there as well. So those are really handy, and they are now permanently part of the printing of that sheet. So set that up and it will just stay there, and then you'll know exactly what date and time it was printed, how many pages there are, if you're missing a page, what the name of the sheet is, it's called products, and what the name of the file is and where it's located. Other options that you can control when you go into page setup, we've done page, we've done margins, we've done header and footer, and then sheet. And that is really the most popular one here, is whether you want to print the grid lines or not. If you take this off and you go OK, it will not print the grid lines. I think this spreadsheet needs grid lines. So I'm going to go back to page setup, back to sheet, and turn the grid lines back on again, and OK. So that's page setup. You can do some small amount of scaling in here. You can do margins in here. You can do paper size, landscape and portrait, and even how it prints. If you're printing, say, 2 copies up here and there are 5 pages, it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the second copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how it collates. You've also got the ability here to print the active sheet, or you might say, look, I just want to print page 2 to 2, because you just want page 2. Or you could hit the drop down here and say, look, I want to print the entire workbook. If you just want to print a certain selection, then you needed to select those cells before you came into print preview. So let me back out of here. If I just want to print the first 10 products, I will actually select this range. I'll then go Control P, and I don't want to print the active sheet, so I hit the drop down and I tell it to print the selection. And that is how you can print just what you want to print, not the entire sheet. And I can even take these pages out, which isn't having an impact, but just to be pedantic. So those are those settings. Here's where we changed our printer before, the number of copies, and then you hit print. So always print preview before you print, because you have in a sheet got over 1 million rows and over 16,000 columns. You really need to print preview and make sure what's going to print is acceptable before you hit print. Otherwise you could go through screeds and screeds of paper. To get out of print preview, I'm just going to hit this back arrow here. I hope you've enjoyed this collection of videos. This is the last video. If you refer to your course notes, you'll then see there are pages and pages of shortcuts in Excel. Every possible shortcut key I could find. Please like, please subscribe, and please come back and look at other videos that we've got. And I hope you enjoy. Bless. Bye.